Just to provide a little bit of background, this particular project relates to a potential underpass that's of Highway 8 that's been under consideration for some time near the proximity of the Steiner and White Avenue intersections with State Highway 8. Currently, State Highway 8 serves as a significant barrier to access to the Paradise Path system that's located on the south side of Highway 8 from the majority of the residential areas of the community that have been developed on the north side of Highway 8. This began back in 2011 when Fritz Fiedler's senior civil engineering class conducted a study that concluded that the pedestrian underpass in that location, utilizing the existing bridge structure that's at the Paradise Creek crossing there, was feasible. This underpass was identified as a high priority project in the recent transportation plans adopted, and also has been identified as a top priority project for the city's Paradise Path Task Force. Just to orient the location, this is a map from the city's recently adopted transportation plan identifying areas where there's crossing impediments for access to pedestrian facilities in the pathway system. Located on the south side of Highway 8 is Paradise Path as it connects from Latah Trail to the Chipman Trail, running east-west through the community. And that highway in that location from the south couplet really does serve as a barrier for the majority of the community from access to the pathway system on the south side of the highway. So there's a large portion of the community, really the central core from downtown to the east out to Mountain View, that has somewhat limited access to the pathway system on the south side of Highway 8. And this crossing location is about dead center there in that location. As I mentioned, the transportation plan also identified this crossing improvement, identified that as a highway underpass as a priority project underneath the city's planned bikeway and pedestrian facility network. So again, the proposal is to evaluate the possibility of a pedestrian pass. It would start on the north side of White Avenue. It would descend down to creek level, pass underneath the existing bridge structure, and then work its way back up to grade to the path on the south side of Highway 8. The class came up with a number of concept drawings and designs for the project. Largely would just be the placement of a supporting base structure for the pathway underneath the bridge, and there were several visualizations the class developed of what that facility could look like. On October 6th of this year, the council approved a phased study approach with 3 phases to verify and assess the concept of the project. The first phase was to validate the class study, looking at the hydrologic and hydraulic assessments, so the watershed flooding characteristics and the conveyance capacity of the bridge structure, and the impact of the proposed pedestrian underpass. Phase 2 was to assess the constructability of the underpass and to establish an estimate of cost of construction. And Phase 3 was to assess the environmental impacts or permitting requirements, wetland delineation, and other aspects of the project that you would encounter during construction. Topographics engineering was selected to conduct the assessment. And just to give a little progress to date, as I mentioned, the council approved the professional services agreement on October 6th of this year. Staff issued a notice to proceed to Topographics on October 7th. Field survey work was initiated on October 7th and completed. That included a survey of the channel, both 150 feet upstream and downstream of the structure, as well as the bridge structure itself and the opening. The hydrologic analysis was conducted to assess the watershed and design flows, and there are actually 4 different numbers that were utilized that are shown in the modeling results. One was a specific analysis of historical gauge data. Another was an assessment of like watersheds. There was a student class number that was used, and also ITD's design when the bridge was originally constructed. They also completed the hydraulic modeling of the bridge structure with the pathway facility included within it. And some of the basic design parameters of the modeling effort were the assumption of a 10-foot wide pedestrian path facility located with a minimum of 8 feet clearance from the bottom chord of the bridge structure. The results of that assessment were, in short, that the pathway would have virtually no impact upon flood events. There was really no increase in flood elevations for the 50-year design event, which is ITD's design event for the bridge structures. And actually, there was a very, very slight decrease in flood elevations due to the smoothing of the flow areas underneath the bridge structure represented by the pathway. There was a minor increase in velocities at the upstream side of the bridge as that flow, that roughness was smooth. That did increase the flow through the bridge structure, but only just a little bit less than 1 foot per second. The memo did indicate 1.5 feet per second, and that was a typo in the memo. The scope of the project, Phase 1, also included an assessment of how often would the pathway be flooded and inundated, and the conclusion was that it would be flooded an average of 3.4 days per year, with an average consecutive inundation of 1.9 days per year. So there are fairly infrequently, and for the vast majority of the time, the facility would be open and available for use. Just to provide a little bit of reference, this is the mean daily discharges at the Paradise Creek Gauge Station. At that location, the 94 CFS mark was when the modeling showed that would be inundated, so the red line there shows that 94 mark. And so wherever you saw a stream flow peak that overtops that line, essentially upstream, those would be instances where the pathway would be flooded at various depths. As you can see, the majority of the remainder of the year, other than a few events during those spring runoff periods, would be open and available for use. So fairly infrequent inundation. So the next steps on the projects, so staff is recommending that this study has concluded that it is feasible, that it has no adverse flood impacts, and that inundation would occur on fairly short and infrequent basis. Staff is recommending that we proceed to Phase 2 to develop the concept design and the cost estimate. We're also requesting authorization to do Phase 3, which was the wetland delineation and environmental assessment. Just because of the winter weather coming in, that it'd be much better for us to get that field work done before snow cover, and we had adverse weather conditions. Again, the assessment was initially to be completed in 3 phases, separately authorized. Phase 1, there was a budget of $5,000, but the actual cost was $4,200 for Phase 1, $6,200 for Phase 2, and $1,750 for Phase 3. As I mentioned, the council budgeted $5,000 for Phase 1 and an additional $10,000 in the council's non-prioritized projects line item, and staff is requesting council authorization to proceed on the project. With that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you have.
Questions for Bill?
I'm impressed with the timeline so far. That slide where you showed 6, 7, 8, I thought that was great. And I'd be happy to make a motion that we authorize staff to proceed with Phase 2 and Phase 3.
I second that.
Okay, there's been a motion made by Tom, a second by Art, to authorize staff to proceed with Phase 2 and 3 of the project study. Other questions? Walter?
Bill, I too am impressed with authorization on the night of the 6th and all the work getting done on the 7th. But staff wouldn't presume to guess what this council might do, would they?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Other questions before I take a roll? Wayne?
I guess I'm just, the Phase 1 was $4,200. They completed that in 1 day?
No, it took approximately 3 weeks to complete Phase 1.
The day was just
One day of field work.
1 day of field work.
Survey work was done in 1 day, but there was much more work beyond that.
You spent a day down there catching muskrats, Wayne.
Okay, we'll start the roll. John?
Aye.
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 Okay, and it passes 6-0. Thank you very much, Bill.